Sabres are strong.
Two big wins here for the Sabres.
I call this the best 2 weeks the Sabres have had in 10 years.
Yeah, they're growing and taking ownership.
Donnie Granato's done a nice job getting these guys refocused. Rasmus Dahlin.
Jeff Skinner. Right place, right time. Just would not say no.
I can see how engaged they were in the game. You don't see a lot of heads hanging.
I want to be a lifer. I think it's such a great culture that we're building and something to be excited about.
That changes the vibe. Everybody wants to be here.
Alex Tuck gets his first as a Buffalo Sabre.
To see Dahlin come out with the assistant captaincy on his jersey, it looks gorgeous.
Rasmus Dahlin.
Talk about cussy.
He's clearly getting stronger as a player.
And this guy, Jeff Skinner, would not be denied in the third period.
He can line up a team with that smile, and with that shot, he lights up the entire building.
I'm so happy right now, it's his favorite thing.
There is definitely something happening in Buffalo right now.
Good vibes, I guess. I don't know.
It's all fresh. It's all new. It was that loud, that intense. It was the type of atmosphere that you had just forgotten existed.
Positivity, step in the right direction. Don's message and philosophy changed our mindset as players.
The one thing I dare say as an objective is we're going to play with passion.
Yeah, other teams are so stunned right now.
Tage Thompson with that patented quick release.
You can literally see their frustration.
Like it, Lumberjack with his stick on the side of the
But they're giving people reasons to get excited in the future. This is the trajectory, almost unlike any prospect that we're talking about right now.
Howard looks amazing.
Tiger want to say, why don't you go take a look at it?
It's only going to add value to his story.
They've clicked, and when you see that click, you run it.
They may bend from time to time, but they will not give up in the moment.
That game was won by the team that stuck together and wanted to win.
That's what culture is. This is our team. This is how we're going to do it in Buffalo.
With the game on his stick now for Buffalo, and a chance to win it, to seal it. Bad angle, goal! This Sabres team is hungry.
You know that feeling you were talking about?
It's never left. It's been here all along, rooted in ourselves, in our souls, in Buffalo.
Everything's going on. It's like a circus. The kids are all right tonight. Pick your spot. Pick your spot. How do you not love this team right now?
How do you not love the Buffalo Sabres right now? Welcome to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Trade deadline day, NHL trade deadline, of course. If the Sabres make a move, you're going to see my face talking about it. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. This has been a very fun season for the Buffalo Sabres. This has been one that I've been to probably 4 or 5 games this year, and I've really enjoyed what I've seen from the Buffalo Sabres this season and even, last season, as that video showed. That was a great hype video that was put out by the Buffalo Sabres and makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, the hairs on my arms stand up, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to play it for the Sabres fans that are tuning into this podcast, whether you're tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, or any audio podcasting platform. I greatly appreciate the love and support from the Sabres fans as well as the Bills Mafia. So let's get right to it. In terms of NHL trade deadline moves, the Buffalo Sabres, they made a great move today. I'm just going to come right out and say it. The Buffalo Sabres acquired Jordan Greenway from the Minnesota Wild, and the Sabres traded 2 picks to Minnesota to get the services of Jordan Greenway. And this is a great tone-setting move from now until the end of the season, as well for the future of the Sabres, because Jordan Greenway is under contract for 2 years beyond this season. So the Sabres have him on the books, $3 million per year for the next 2 years. And yeah, I'll say it, I've said this before, anytime I'm talking about the National Hockey League or the NFL, obviously I'm a big Madden player, play NHL, 23, 22, I've played them all, over the last 20 years. And Jordan Greenway is one of those guys that, dare I say it, I go out and get him for my Buffalo Sabres franchise because he is that type of physical winger that the Sabres have desperately needed for quite some time. And to not have that physicality on a hockey club is sorely missed, especially when you're a hockey club that is trying to make the playoffs and not only make the playoffs, but break a playoff drought that the Sabres have had over the last 11, 12 years. And I'll also point to the fact that, as I mentioned, I've been to multiple games this year, and one massive piece of the physicality that the Sabres have in terms of their power play and or their penalty kill is Alex Tuch. And Tuch is obviously hurt, and that has been a big loss to this Sabres roster over the course of the last week or so. He got hurt towards the tail end of a win, and the Sabres really haven't been the same since. Dare I say it, Alex Tuch right now is probably the MVP of the Buffalo Sabres and is the most sorely missed Buffalo Sabre that is not on this roster currently. So getting him, back to health is priority number one, but finding a player that could fill that role and fulfill that need for the Buffalo Sabres was priority number two, and that was Jordan Greenway. And Greenway has had some rough years these last few years in Minnesota, but a lot of players have had rough years in Minnesota these last few years outside of Kaprizov. The entire roster has kind of changed slowly but surely, and another player that was on the Wild that I feel like has really carved out a role on this Sabres roster since he was acquired was Tyson Jost, who was kind of on the downswing in Minnesota. He gets cut and then waived, quote unquote waived and claimed by the Sabres, and now he has looked much, much better as a true fourth line center of the Buffalo Sabres over the course of the last few months or so since he became an addition to the Buffalo Sabres. So this is a move that I'm really excited about as well. The Sabres did make a couple other moves. They traded Rasmus Asplund to the Nashville Predators for a 7th round draft choice. This is a move that will allow Rasmus Asplund the ample playing time that he wants, whereas right now this team is just so deep in terms of forwards that I feel like their pipeline is so rich that Rasmus Asplund didn't really have a role within this roster the way that he did 2-3 years ago. And anytime he did have a role within this roster, it wasn't really fulfilled in the form and fashion that we'd want from Rasmus Asplund. So the Sabres play tomorrow afternoon. Puck drop is at 12:30 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And obviously, we got three big games actually in succession. Last night, the Sabres took a 7-1 loss at the hands of the Boston Bruins. It kind of showed you the disparity between the Bruins as well as the Sabres. Bruins have only lost 8 games all season long. The Sabres have lost, 20, 29, somewhere in that range. So anytime, you're playing against the elite of the elite, that allows you to kind of get a gauge as far as where you are as a team and where you need to improve. And the Sabres have a lot of room for improvement leading into this upcoming game against Tampa Bay. And then the game after that, Edmonton. So you have some tough competition coming up in these next two. It's going to be very fun to see Patty Kane back on home ice, essentially next Saturday as the New York Rangers are in town, taking on the Buffalo Sabres, of course. That's a game that I might potentially attend. So Kevin Johnston says that he absolutely loves the trades. He's going to be going to the game March 9th against the Stars. That's on Thursday, next Thursday. As well, he loves the trade on Jordan Greenway. And, you pull up a Jordan Greenway highlight, you're not going to see dazzling stick handling and crazy goals. You're going to see a guy that loves to put people into the boards, a guy that loves to defend his teammates, a guy that loves to scrap. And the Sabres have not had that in quite some time in terms of a guy that can do, one of everything. I look at Jordan Greenway as an Evander Kane-esque type player. I look at Jordan Greenway as somebody that I do see carving out a long-term role on this team, and a guy that the Sabres fans should definitely love in terms of what he brings to the table. And this is a player that I'm really excited about for the Sabres. Now, going into the trade deadline, I'd like to give my analysis on how the Sabres have played thus far. Going into this season, I was really impressed with what Donnie Granato was able to establish towards the tail end of last season. From February on, during the 2021-2022 season, the Sabres were a top 5 team in the National Hockey League, and being top 5 only for those 3 months of the season unfortunately wasn't good enough for the Sabres to quote-unquote break the drought, but I was highly encouraged by the response that I saw from the players to their coach. It was the first time in a long time that I could see a coach actually galvanize the players, get the players to buy into his message, and get the players to really respond to the message that he was sending. We hadn't seen that since the days of Lindy Ruff, and Lindy Ruff, it's been a bit since Lindy Ruff has been the coach of this team. So the Sabres currently sit at 31-25-4. In terms of the playoffs right now, the Sabres are just on the outside looking in of a playoff spot. These few games here are super, super important, are crucial, as the Pittsburgh Penguins have 71 points, the New York Islanders have 70 points, the Buffalo Sabres have 66 points, tied with the Ottawa Senators for 66 points in the, obviously, Atlantic Eastern Wild Card, whatever you want to call it. Now, the crux of this whole situation is that I really feel like Jordan Greenway is a great addition. If the Sabres would have come away with Jordan Greenway and Jacob Chychrun, I would have been completely over the moon, completely excited about the prospects of having those two guys on the team. And when you see the return that basically Phoenix or Arizona got for Chychrun, I thought that we could have made that happen. A couple second-round picks, with this team as loaded as they are in terms of youthful talent, I thought a couple of those second-round picks could have gone to Arizona from Buffalo. And we could have been, talking about Jacob Chychrun on the blue line with guys like Jokiharju and Dahlin, Power, you name it. I mean, the core of this team is really essential to the progress of the team, of course. Building upon that core is also essential to the progress of the team, and I feel like we got a great addition today with Jordan Greenway. Would have really liked more from Kevin Adams, but hey, I can't be too nitpicky because this team is at a point where it hasn't been in quite some time, and I really do think that it's in large part to some of the best players on this roster. Rasmus Dahlin, who is nursing an injury, hopefully they can get him back sooner rather than later. As well, in terms of stats, I really look at the fact that for the first time since 2007, 2008, the Sabres have 5 guys over 20 goals. Tage Thompson is now over 40 goals, coming off of a 38-goal season. Dylan Cousins has had a phenomenal year. The last game I went to, he got his first career hat trick. So the core is there between Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Rasmus Dahlin, all guys that I think, Thompson and Cousins are locked up long-term. Dahlin's the next one. And to be honest with you, I've been super impressed by Owen Power, who I feel is as advertised a player as I've seen, in terms of hype and things like that. It's not hype. I thought he played really well against Washington, covering and trying to be on top of Alexander Ovechkin. I thought he looked really good. So getting some stats up here on the stat line for the Buffalo Sabres is super important for the show. Wanted to make sure that I had this right for the Sabres fans. So in terms of the team right now, moving forward, this team is atop the National Hockey League in goals. They're really, really close to being that. The top point leader is obviously Tage Thompson. He's got 80 points in 60 games. Alex Tuch, he's out, but he had 62 points in 57 games. Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch, the goal leaders right now with 41 and 28. Jeff Skinner having a phenomenal year once again with 25 goals and 35 assists with 60 points. And Jeff Skinner's always been a guy that I've always liked, been a big fan of his. I love his game, what he brings to the table. Some Sabres fans, feel like he's overpaid. Well, each team in the National Hockey League has at least one guy that is quote-unquote overpaid, and Jeff Skinner is ours. I'd take that over the majority of some of these teams that have the most overpaid player. As I mentioned, Dylan Cousins, he's got 23 goals on the season, 52 points in 59 games. Victor Olofsson, 23 goals, only 9 assists on the year for Victor Olofsson, with a plus-minus rating of -17. So there's a little bit more from Olofsson that I'd like to see that we just haven't quite seen yet. Dare I say it, if I were to kind of look into my crystal ball, Olofsson could be a potential trade piece for the Sabres in the future. And moving forward in terms of players that have really impressed me on the young end of things, 3 guys, Jack Quinn, John Jason, J.J. Paterka, and Peyton Krebs. Out of the 3 of those players, I would say Krebs has actually impressed me the most. And I say that because I did not expect Krebs to have the physicality that he has had over the course of his time here in Buffalo. I thought this guy was a younger player. Were we going to come to expect, this younger player to be, what he has been? I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all. I didn't expect Krebs to really get in between Brad Marchand and try to throw fists. He's trying to make his impact any way he can, and that's been very fun to see. And then you kind of do have the veteran players, the Gergensons, the Okposos. I don't know what their future is with the Buffalo Sabres. It couldn't, it might not be beyond this season, but what their role is. They know what their role is, and they're playing within their role pretty well as fourth-line players on this team, which is an important piece of this team or any hockey team. The fourth line, you need to get something out of those guys, and they're maximizing their production despite the limited minutes that they do get. So, in terms of average on-ice time, Rasmus Dahlin is a minutes eater at 26 minutes a night. Owen Power, 23 minutes a night. Matthias Samuelsson, who you saw, Samuelsson being out of the lineup for a stretch of time here, you saw what that did to this team. It just goes to show you that this core is a legitimate core that the Sabres have. This is not just, smoke and mirrors like it was before, where we'd say, well, this is a young team, a talented team. We're young, we're growing. Well, we were young, but we weren't necessarily growing in previous years. And I do see the growth this time around with the Buffalo Sabres with these guys. I'm super excited for just the rest of this season to take place. I think that a lot of things need to happen in order for the Sabres to make the playoffs, but most importantly, the Sabres have to win. And I think the one thing that has been the crux in the back, or the knife in the back, so to speak, for the Buffalo Sabres is the goaltending. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has shown signs of decent things. The defense in front of them, as young as they are, have shown signs of growth, but there's moments in these starts with the UPL that he's really hung out to dry. And I think that that's something that needs to stop in order for UPL to truly know where his progress is. The defense has got to tighten up. Craig Anderson, the ageless wonder, he's 41 years old. I'd love to have him back for another season as a backup goalie. I don't know if that's going to happen. There was rumors that Craigie was going to retire at the end of last season. He didn't. Came back for another year. Craig Anderson, I feel, has been one of the best goalies of his era. Very underrated, what he has brought to the team. Currently, right now, he has the lowest goals against average among the 3 netminders in the net for the Sabres this year, with 2.77. The winningest netminder for the Sabres this year, with the most games played, is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 15-9 in 26 starts, 15-9-2 rather in 26 starts. The most goals against, the most saves, but to me the opportunity knocks due to the fact that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has played more starts than anybody, especially in comparison to Craig Anderson. Eric Comrie, he was hurt, he was banged up. I don't expect him to, really take many starts away from UPL once he comes back. Maybe, but I don't expect it. Asplund is gone now. Anders Bjork is gone now. A player that I expected to also be claimed by a team that was waived by the Buffalo Sabres and was fortunately, I actually feel, not claimed by anybody, is Vinny Hinostroza. I liked what Vinny Hinostroza did last season. Felt like he brought a lot to the Sabres last year. I don't know what the future is going to hold for him as a member of the Sabres next season, but I do like him on the line with Middlestat and Cousins. I thought that line was pretty impactful. So the Sabres acquired that 2025 7th-round pick for Rasmus Asplund from the Nashville Predators, basically kind of sending Asplund off to kind of just get more playing time. These next few games for the Sabres are extremely important. Of course, on my podcast, I'll be sure to cover these games for the Buffalo Sabres, and I love the Sabres right now. I feel like they're finally finding their rhythm as far as their core, generating a great group of guys, putting together an even better addition to this team with Jordan Greenway. I really like what he brings to the table, and I'm super excited to see him wearing the blue and gold, or my personal favorite, the black and red. I'm Ryan Thomas. Of course, that was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Jordan Greenway, acquired by the Buffalo Sabres. Thank you so much for tuning in. Last and certainly not least, let's go Buffalo.